In the annals of naval warfare, few names command the reverence accorded to Horatio Nelson, a man whose tactical brilliance transformed the very nature of sea combat, whose courage bordered on the reckless, and whose death, in the moment of his greatest triumph, secured Britain's dominance over the world's oceans for generations. Nelson embodied the British Royal Navy at its zenith, when wooden ships and iron men decided the fate of empires. His legacy transcends mere military achievement, representing the marriage of innovative strategy, unwavering determination, and supreme sacrifice in service to crown and country. Horatio Nelson entered the world on September 29, 1758, in the Norfolk village of Burnham Thorpe, the sixth of 11 children born to Reverend Edmund Nelson and Catherine Suckling. His father served as rector of the local parish, a position that provided respectability but modest means. The Nelson household, though not wealthy, possessed connections that would prove invaluable. Catherine's brother, Maurice Suckling, had achieved the rank of captain in the Royal Navy, establishing a maritime link that would shape young Horatio's destiny. The Norfolk countryside of Nelson's youth was harsh and unforgiving, breeding a generation accustomed to hardship and resilience. The death of Catherine Nelson in 1767, when Horatio was merely 9 years old, cast a shadow over his formative years. His father, overwhelmed by the burden of raising 11 children alone, struggled to maintain the family's position. It was Captain Maurice Suckling who offered salvation, agreeing to take his nephew to sea when the boy reached 12 years of age. In 1770, young Nelson joined his uncle aboard HMS Reasonable as a midshipman, beginning a naval career that would span over 3 decades. The transition from rural Norfolk to the disciplined world of the Royal Navy marked the end of childhood innocence, and the forging of a character that would prove both brilliant and uncompromising. Nelson's early naval service revealed both exceptional promise and dangerous ambition. His first voyage to the West Indies exposed him to the brutal realities of tropical disease and naval warfare. Unlike many of his contemporaries who viewed naval service as mere duty, Nelson approached his profession with intense study and unwavering dedication. He devoured naval treatises, observed veteran officers with keen attention, and demonstrated a natural understanding of seamanship that impressed his superiors. By age 20, he had achieved the rank of post-captain, an extraordinary accomplishment that spoke to his exceptional abilities and the influence of his connections within the naval establishment. The outbreak of war with France in 1793 provided Nelson with the theater his talents demanded. Command of HMS Agamemnon brought him to the Mediterranean, where his aggressive tactics and innovative approaches to naval warfare first gained widespread attention. The siege of Calvi in 1794 resulted in the loss of sight in his right eye, the first of several wounds that would mark his career. Rather than diminishing his effectiveness, physical injury seemed to intensify Nelson's determination and tactical acumen. His actions at the Battle of Cape St. Vincent in 1797 demonstrated his willingness to disobey orders when tactical advantage demanded it, a characteristic that would define his command philosophy. Nelson's personal life revealed complexities that contrasted sharply with his public image. His marriage to Frances Nisbet in 1787 provided social respectability, but little emotional satisfaction. Frances, a widow from the Caribbean island of Nevis, possessed neither the passionate temperament nor the intellectual curiosity that Nelson craved. Their relationship, while outwardly conventional, lacked the intensity that characterized Nelson's professional pursuits. The marriage produced no children and gradually deteriorated as Nelson's naval duties kept him away for extended periods. His correspondence with Frances reveals a man struggling to balance domestic expectations with an all-consuming dedication. The Battle of the Nile on August 1, 1798, established Nelson as Britain's foremost naval commander. His destruction of the French fleet in Aboukir Bay demonstrated tactical genius of the highest order. Rather than engaging the enemy in traditional line of battle formation, Nelson divided his force and attacked from both sides, achieving complete surprise and devastating effect. The victory stranded Napoleon's army in Egypt and shattered French naval power in the Mediterranean. Nelson's wound during the battle, a severe head injury that temporarily blinded him, added to his growing reputation as a commander who shared the dangers faced by his men. The victory earned him a peerage and national acclaim. The aftermath of the Nile brought Nelson to Naples, where he encountered Emma Hamilton, the wife of the British envoy Sir William Hamilton. The meeting sparked a passionate affair that would dominate Nelson's personal life until his death. Emma, a woman of extraordinary beauty and vivacious personality, provided the emotional intensity that had been absent from Nelson's marriage. Their relationship, conducted with scandalous openness, produced a daughter, Horatia, and transformed Nelson from a devoted husband into an unapologetic adulterer. The affair damaged his reputation in polite society but seemed to liberate him from conventional constraints, perhaps contributing to his increasingly bold, tactical innovations. Nelson's involvement in Neapolitan politics during 1799 revealed a darker aspect of his character. His harsh treatment of Neapolitan Republicans, particularly the execution of Commodore Caracciolo, despite promises of safe conduct, stained his reputation with accusations of betrayal and cruelty. The episode demonstrated Nelson's capacity for ruthless action when political considerations demanded it, a characteristic that his enemies would exploit in propaganda campaigns. However, his supporters argued that harsh measures were necessary to maintain British influence in the Mediterranean and prevent French resurgence in southern Italy. The controversy followed Nelson throughout his career, complicating his legacy. The resumption of hostilities with France in 1803 brought Nelson his most challenging command, the blockade of Toulon. For nearly 2 years, he maintained a constant vigil off the French coast, preventing Admiral Villeneuve's fleet from joining forces with other French squadrons. The blockade demanded exceptional seamanship, logistical skill, and psychological endurance from both Nelson and his men. His policy of close blockade, maintaining position regardless of weather conditions, kept the French fleet trapped but placed enormous strain on British ships and crews. Nelson's leadership during this period demonstrated his mastery of both grand strategy and the minutiae of naval administration. The pursuit of Villeneuve's fleet to the West Indies in 1805 showcased Nelson's strategic thinking on a global scale. When the French admiral succeeded in breaking out of Toulon and sailing for the Caribbean, Nelson correctly deduced the enemy's intentions and followed. Though he arrived too late to prevent Villeneuve from achieving his immediate objectives, Nelson's rapid pursuit forced the French fleet to abandon its mission and return to Europe. The chase across the Atlantic demonstrated the global reach of British naval power and Nelson's ability to think strategically while maintaining tactical flexibility. His return to European waters set the stage for the decisive confrontation that both sides knew was inevitable. October 21, 1805, dawned clear off Cape Trafalgar, where Nelson's 27 ships faced the combined Franco-Spanish fleet of 33 vessels. Nelson's battle plan, explained to his captains days earlier, abandoned conventional naval tactics in favor of a bold assault in 2 columns directly at the enemy line. The plan risked everything on the superior gunnery and seamanship of British crews, accepting heavy initial casualties in exchange for the opportunity to achieve decisive victory. As HMS Victory approached the enemy line, Nelson walked the quarterdeck in full dress uniform, his decorations making him a conspicuous target for enemy marksmen. His famous signal, "England expects that every man will do his duty," galvanized the fleet for the coming battle. The Battle of Trafalgar unfolded exactly as Nelson had envisioned. His 2 columns, led by Victory and Royal Sovereign, smashed through the enemy line and engaged at close quarters, where British advantages in gunnery and crew training proved decisive. The French and Spanish fleet, caught in the confusion of a shifting wind and unconventional attack, could not coordinate an effective response. Ship after ship struck their colors as British gunners maintained a devastating rate of fire. At the height of the battle, a French sniper's bullet found Nelson on Victory's quarterdeck, the musket ball lodging in his spine and inflicting a mortal wound. Carried below to the cockpit, Nelson continued to direct the battle until assured of complete victory. Nelson's final hours aboard Victory revealed the full measure of his character. Despite excruciating pain and the certainty of death, he maintained interest in the battle's progress and concern for his men's welfare. His last words to Captain Hardy, "Kiss me, Hardy," and his final utterance, "Thank God I have done my duty," encapsulated a life devoted entirely to naval service. His death at the moment of his greatest triumph transformed military victory into national tragedy and personal sacrifice into immortal legend. The news of Trafalgar and Nelson's death reached London simultaneously, creating a complex emotional response of jubilation and mourning that would define British national memory for generations. The immediate aftermath of Trafalgar secured British naval supremacy for the remainder of the Napoleonic Wars and beyond. The destruction of the combined Franco-Spanish fleet eliminated the last serious challenge to British control of the seas, enabling the Royal Navy to maintain the blockade of continental Europe that would ultimately contribute to Napoleon's downfall. Nelson's tactical innovations, particularly his willingness to abandon linear tactics in favor of concentrated assault, influenced naval warfare for decades. His emphasis on individual initiative among subordinate commanders created a culture of aggressive leadership that became characteristic of the Royal Navy throughout the 19th century. Nelson's legacy transcended military achievement to encompass British national identity itself. His combination of tactical brilliance, personal courage, and ultimate sacrifice created a model of heroic leadership that resonated far beyond naval circles. The cult of Nelson that emerged after Trafalgar provided Britain with a unifying symbol during the difficult years of the Napoleonic Wars, while his tactical doctrines influenced naval thinking well into the age of steam and steel. Modern naval commanders still study his battles for lessons in leadership, initiative, and the decisive application of force. His life demonstrated how individual genius, operating within favorable circumstances and supported by superior institutions, can alter the course of history and secure the foundations of national greatness for generations to come.